Hello, everyone, and welcome to this learning lab for data model and DDL JSON version control. So basically, today's guidelines are basically the agenda is going to be on how we can leverage the best of this presentation. So these are some of the areas that we'll be covering here. So just to let you know, this learning lab is meant for sort of like an educational session. This is not meant to be a support-based avenue. So if you have any questions about specific tickets, please talk to your product support rep. And at the end of this, we'll leave it up for Q&A. And that's when we'll address any questions. So what is the objective of today's learning lab? Our goal is to basically help our current customers utilize the model repository and Git that we introduced for DDL and JSON generation that will enable the data architect to be part of the DevOps process. Going forward, the product will enable you to compare the differences between versions of the DDL and JSON by using the compare and merge. Git compare allows you to showcase where the text is different. And with the ERS compare and merge, it shows you the semantic differences, which is far more powerful. Our goal is to enable you to build with all of these design principles in mind, and also check in your models into the repository that we ship with the product of Professional Edition and above. And Git is available only as part of the Enterprise Edition, so that's something to keep in mind. So here, if you look at the main goal of the Git tool itself, it helps you to provide version controls and the outputs of ER Studio that the code it generates. So anytime, what we're trying to do here is to help you embed this part of your CI/CD process, where we're not only working with the data models but also the code. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and work with the model, and then we'll compare with the previous version, and it will go ahead and create the DDL from that. After that, we are able to go ahead and create alter scripts and commit those to Git, so that each release you have, you'll be able to create the DDL for a brand new app deployment that uses the database. Also being able to generate alter scripts from previous versions to upgrade existing deployments to the latest version. So those are some of the typical use cases. The most important thing here we need to understand is that we're talking about structured model management. We need a centralized repository that will govern the role-based access and audit trails to support branching and merging, and as well as resolving schema conflicts that is part of the model management approach. Also being able to use named releases for versioning, rollback, and deployment confidence. Now, coming to the Git part of the version control, this is where we would export the DDL, not the model. I would like to reiterate that. It's just the DDL and the JSON directly to Git for structured schema versioning. Next, we have Git commits that will provide traceability, rollback, and change audits. And of course, most important of all is to help promote team collaboration throughout the workflow. As part of the CI/CD pipeline, each organization is different, and we aim to provide a generic overview today, not specific to any particular organization best practice, because each one's CI/CD implementation is different. We help you to leverage the Git tracked DDL scripts in the CI/CD, and also being able to validate and reduce all of the automation and risk of manual work. As well as we have the ability to scale the schema management with consistent version controlled updates. All right, so now let's switch over to the demo, and I will go into ER Studio Data Architect here. Can I get a quick show of hands that you're able to see the screen? Awesome, thank you. So now, here you're seeing I have a sample data model that have reverse engineered from a database. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go ahead and check in this model into the repository. So here, what I've done is I've actually gone ahead and logged in to the repository. And from here, I'm actually going to go into our project center. And in the project center, I'm actually going to go ahead and create a new project called Learning Lab Model Management. And here I'll just give, this is meant for the model files. And now that I have this, I can actually go ahead and add the model that I'm gonna check in into the repository. So I'm just gonna apply this and create the new project. Once I'm done with this, I can then go ahead and check in the model. So I'll go ahead and add this diagram to the repository. Here's where you can actually go ahead and showcase, like, as soon as you've worked with a couple of data modelers in your team, they have all come to the decision, like, as part of the business, we need to go ahead and push this into the repo so that we can jointly work on this data model. One of the key elements that I would like to emphasize here is that not only are you going to be able to go ahead and bind this to a particular repository project, but also if there are any data dictionary items, you can go ahead and promote them from a local to an enterprise data dictionary, thereby helping you to have a centralized enterprise data dictionary that you can use throughout your modeling projects. And this can be the single source of truth as well. So here I'll just give it a Learning Lab Model Management. And here I'll just hit OK. So now what's happening is this is actually checking in the model into the repository. And once that happens, we'll go ahead and start building our changes, and we'll see how we can collaborate on those changes. There we go. So now, as soon as you've seen a lock, that means that the model is inside the repository. And let's say I wanted to go ahead and modify the employee table. So I'll double click on that. And here you can see I have the ability to add a change record. Now this is where you can actually go ahead and add, based on your organization's naming standards, you can go ahead and add either a JIRA ticket number reference, or you can go ahead and add your own DevOps-based reference numbers here. So here I'll just give it as Learning Lab Model Management version 1. And here I'll just say modifying EMP table. Okay, so once I have that, I can even associate this with a task. So here I can do a add to Git, or I can just have my own thing like add modify table task. And here I can just say modifying EMP. EMP table. So this helps you to also have granularity and scope for the references that you're trying to make changes in the repository. Now, one key element here that a lot of people do not get to use is the checkout exclusively. So what this means is, let's say, for example, if I'm working on this particular model, and my colleague Darren or Christine needs to go ahead and make changes, they cannot do so because I've held control over this particular entity exclusive, table exclusively, and thereby cannot make changes. So your best bet is to use the checkout option. That'll help you to allow the team to work with as a group. The view mode is used whenever you wanted to go ahead and leverage, just like from a presentation standpoint, you're giving a presentation to your team. That's when, without making any accidental changes, you can use the view mode. So I'm going to go ahead and choose checkout here. And don't want this. And here I'll actually go ahead and open up the columns, the table editor. And let's say I wanted to go ahead and make a change here for this. So I'll go ahead and add this as a surname. So I've gone ahead and I'm going to make a change to the column. I'll just call it as last name. So now here you can see it says last name. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and check in this object. Before I check this in, I also have the ability to review the changes before the check-in. So I'll do that first. And ER Studio really shines in terms of giving you all that metadata information beforehand and going through that as part of a quality control process. And that will help you make the decisions that you need to do. So here you can see I have the ability to, excuse me, I have the ability to look at all of these in place, and I can actually generate a report, a change report, that here you can see what's the changes. And if you click on more, it gives you exactly what items were changed. So now I'm going to go and click on OK. There we go. So now it's changed. Now the next thing that you might want to do is to explore the concept of branching and merging inside the model management repository. So here you can actually go ahead and see, we can help you to create different versions of branches that you can go ahead and do. Here you can actually give it a new branch with a version number and give it a description. So that again will go ahead and help you. At any point in time, if you are stuck, you can always click on the help menu, and this will give you a tutorial on how you can go and do this here as well. Next, what we'll do is we'll talk about the concept of name releases. Name releases are pretty powerful. So for example, here, if you can go ahead and set a name release for this, you can actually go ahead and just say, I'll call this as my gold image, and I'll call it as model management. I'll call this as the master gold image for this data model. And what that does, it actually creates like a snapshot. So if you're familiar with database snapshots, it creates a point in time of that state. And right now it's in the perfect state that we want it to be, so that in case of any accidental changes or deletions, we can revert back to the original state. Going forward with this, we also have the ability in terms of how we can secure our data models as part of the model management. So here in ER Studio's repository, we take security pretty seriously. And here, whenever you're trying to add users or give them access, the security center is your best friend. This is where you can actually go ahead and look at some of the default permissions that we've enabled. So for example, the first area I would go, and we've added this basic user roles as part of the newer releases, so that we have like security first in mind. Here I've gone ahead and created a reader's a role where I've not given them access to anything. Okay, so you have the ability to go ahead and add new roles, and based on that roles, you can assign the permissions, similar to database roles if you're familiar with that. Next, we can go into the manage groups area. This is where you can actually add a set of users or that are part of a group. They can be an LDAP group, or you can have them leverage this in terms of your own group within the repository. So if you do not specify a directory service group, which is an LDAP group, you can actually just call it as architects here, for example, and you can add the users as part of that architect group. And once I hit apply, let me go ahead and do this here. And after that, I can actually go into the user management and I can go ahead and add a user. So let's say I add myself. And you will notice that we have this SSO user. So if you've configured Team Server to have like your Microsoft Entra, you can also have that here in the repository as well. Right now we have all of those in place. So now what I'll do is I'll actually go in here and go back to the security center. And once I'm done with it, I can then show you the assignments of the various models on which that user has access. So here you can see I have Anil as the user, and I'm just going to add this to the readers group for now. And here you can see in the repository, I can add or remove access. So here, for example, I can remove access for this corporate enterprise models. And I can also go ahead and remove access for the data products example. Here I can hit apply and hit OK. And once we have done that, now if I log out from here, and I decide to log back in as Anil, I'll just save the changes. Gonna log me in now. And now if I just go to get diagram, here you can see I just have access to only certain projects. All the other projects have been removed from my purview, right? So that again helps you to do the model management easily. Yeah, so now let's log out and let me log back in as an admin. Excellent. So now I will go ahead and showcase, say for example, if I wanted to look at some basic administration tasks, you can look at the repository properties here and look at which server it's connected to and what is the current version. And apart from this, you also have the ability to look at different options where you can change the Team Server repository password, or if you wanted to look at more, you can also go ahead and look at the enterprise data dictionaries that we created here. So now you can see which model has been versioned and tied to that particular enterprise data dictionary. So all of this is very useful information. Now, one of the other aspects of the model version management is where I can actually go ahead and take this to the next level. I can actually go into the physical data model. And if I go to the tools section, you'll see that I have something called Git options. So in Git options, I can actually go ahead and configure my Git server where I have it in GitHub. And it can be any of the DevOps we support, so ADO or GitLab or any of those providers. So here I'm using GitHub, and I'm using my personal username and access token. Once you get that, you should be able to go ahead and test it. Here I'm going to choose an empty directory. As you folks know, for Git, the directory has to be empty in order to do that first initial pull. So I'm going to go ahead and test this. And here we have a success message. And for any reason, if you're stumbling upon why I'm not able to access this Git, or if there's an error message, it's typically, most of the time, it belongs to your personal access token, usually. So either it might have been expired, or you might have just been given the wrong username, all that information. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and clone this. So now I have this in here. So it's going to go ahead and show it to me in my documents on my local folder. So once I have done that, I can now go ahead and generate a Git script for all of this. So now when I choose generate database, I'm presented with not only these options, but I'm also presented with the option to generate a file to Git. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to go ahead and do this. Now I'm going to create a new branch. So here I have several branches. I'm going to go ahead and create a new branch called Learning Labs Model Management. And here we're going to make sure that this goes to this file name. So I'm just going to call this as learninglabs model management, so that we can make it, we can recognize the name, and we'll put a git commit message. Okay. And here I think one extra L has come in. There we go. And here I'm just going to say first commit. So now here we're just going to leave these as blank. But what's important here is that we can actually go ahead and showcase what areas we want here. So here I can actually go ahead and add or deselect any of the tables or anything I need. I also have the ability to do a SQL preview here. So here I can actually do a SQL preview and copy the SQL here and save it to a file, or I can just go directly next, and here I can use just to preview everything is good, and I'll just hit finish. So now here it's asking me for a change record. I'll say push to Git. I'll say first commit. I'll put a task. I'll say add to Git task. There we go. So now it's actually going ahead and pushing all of this metadata out. And now you can see it's written everything to Git. There we go. See, everything is done. So now it's with this file name, it's going to be available in Git. Okay. So how do we verify that? I'm going to go ahead onto my GitHub, and we're going to go ahead and navigate there. So now you can see it just immediately just said model manager has got 4 seconds ago. So I'm going to go into that branch now. And here you can see I have learning model management, first commit. There we go, the successful first push to Git. So now what I can do is I can actually go back to data architect and make a modification here and restore that back to surname. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here I'm just going to rename this back. So now that I have saved that, I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to check in the object. So now that I've checked in this object, I can then now do a compare and merge with Git. So now that I'm going to go here, I'm just going to say compare and merge. And here, I'm actually going to say compare against a file from Git. I'm going to connect there. And here it automatically pulls that. So now I need to pull that file that I have here. So it's going to be called learning model management. And here you can see I have the first commit. It's going to look at that version. And now it's going to go into there and give me the option to generate the delta alters that I need. Yeah, so that's another cool area that we can see. And since I'm interested only in the EMP one, I'm just going to go ahead and choose that so that we can just focus on that. So here you can see on the column stand, here you can see it says its last name. So I wanted to merge this into the target. Okay, so now it's actually going to go ahead and give me the script file from here, and I can generate to Git as well. So I can generate the Git one here, and I can just associate this with that, and I can say modified surname, and here you can see the actual file is called a physical alter. So that's something to keep in mind. So instead of saying physical alter, I'll just say learning model management alter script. Okay. So now if I go ahead and hit finish, it's going to go ahead and push it straight to Git. There we go. So it gave everything here. Everything looks good. I'll say no. And then everything's been pushed. Excellent. Now let's go back to GitHub. And let's go to ER Studio. And here under model management, we should see an alter script right here. There we go. So that was easy, wasn't it? And one of the key things to keep in mind is whenever you're doing these merging or comparisons, just make sure that you're putting the commits, and then so that it'll line up and you can compare it against each other. So that, in short, was how you can do it. Now, the same thing will hold true for a JSON file. If you just go ahead and go into the logical model and generate a JSON based instance. So for example, if I want to generate a new physical model, I can then choose either a JSON instance or a MongoDB instance that I have. So you have all of these options available for you. So here you can go ahead and choose the tables, and here we can choose all of them. And here I can just create an associated entity, and then we'll just hit finish. And there's my JSON. I can also go ahead and change the database platform right from here as well. If I do not want JSON, I can choose MongoDB and choose the correct version. And it goes and changes it to MongoDB here for me. So one of the key benefits here is that you can also go ahead and say generate database here, and here you can generate the same script file to Git. So the same process that we followed there. So that was how we wanted to show you the value of how you can integrate not only for the models in our repository for the model management and doing the branching and merging, but also having the ability to showcase with DDL with Git. That also has the ability for you as well. So with that, let's go back to the slides here. So feel free to take a picture of this or scan the code where you can request a demonstration from one of our solutions architects, and also be able to ask any questions that you may have right now.